What ended your friendship with your best friend? He cheated on his wife with my girlfriend. Killed what I thought was two great relationships with one bang. Actually, it was a lot more than that, but I liked the way it sounded. I got tired of always being the one to put forth any effort. Fly across the world to meet up, attend family gatherings, reach out, be patient, make sacrifice. It was good times when we were together. So it was worth it for a while, but when she moved close and still never bothered to make an effort, I was over it. Wish her nothing but the best. I had a good friend in 8th grade who was a very kind and affectionate person. Never had a crush on her at all. We were physically affectionate people, never sexual. She would mess with my hair, and sometimes put her hand on my leg, so I did the same. At the time, her boyfriend was aware of our relationship, and was cool with it. I even was good friends with him. One day, I got called to the principal's office and I walked into my mother, father, principal, and a police officer asking me to sit down. I felt like someone I knew died, but no, they said that she had accused me of sexually assaulting her. I spent 2 hours crying, giving them my phone, watching them comb through my texts, reviewing video footage, and interviewing the boyfriend and the girl. In the end, she lied to her parents because she got caught that she was dating her boyfriend, and used me as a scapegoat, and saying her boyfriend hit her. The police called my household and said that I was free, and that if we wanted to sue, we would win. The rest of the year, anytime I saw her, I walked away and threw up because I felt like I was a monster. After severe depression, I sat in my room and got over it. The following years, the boyfriend and I would joke about it all the time. Good man, terrible friend girl. After 14 years of friendship, we get an apartment and suddenly he loses his job as a personal trainer because of a dress code violation. He wore a hoodie to work, allegedly, and then 2 to 3 months of him not working. Then after he agreed to pay me back eventually, all he ever gave me was $400 from his mom. I paid over $14,000 for the year. So I paid the full year lease and he stayed 8 months total. I never talked to him again, also because I found a receipt where he was trying to make a copy of my car keys make and model. I hate that guy. I said no to a perfectly lovely guy who was just my type once because I was feeling a bit down and not like I could deal with the world of romance. I mentioned this to my best friend in passing one day and it transpired that they knew each other. My best friend managed to dig me out of my shell enough to at least go out for a quick drink with him. 2 years later I walked down the aisle towards him. We're now fulfilling a lifelong dream of mine by living in another country together and have a life full of love and adventure planned. Obviously, I'd never have known this to regret it, but it's incredible to think how different my life would be if I'd stuck with my original no. My husband at the time had to step away from his job because he was dealing with pretty severe mental health issues. We had a young child and I was a stay-at-home mom, and it was really devastating, not only financially, but socially, as a lot of our social life revolved around his job and work friends. I was really good friends with a coworker's wife. The coworker moved into my husband's, higher up, position when my husband had to resign. We had to sell our home since we couldn't make the mortgage payment anymore. The friend came to help me pack, and while doing so told me that they always knew this would happen because the Lord had revealed it to the husband in a dream several years earlier. They had basically been waiting around for my husband to fail so that coworker could succeed and fulfill the Lord's prophesy. Yeah, no. Said goodbye to her, moved out of state, and never looked back. I won't tolerate people using religion to be dicks. Time. We grew up, had kids, and moved apart. Edit. I've known this guy since I was 6 or 7, which has now been 40 plus years. He was my best friend, and I'd still consider him as such. We were both best men at each other's weddings, and I was the first non-family member invited to the hospital to hold his children after they were born. Time just sneaks up on you. It's the small things to start with, and eventually, the relationship is still there, but there's no significant time or contact spent on either side. We still text/call each other about 1 to 2 times a year about serious matters, family/jobs, but the regular screwing around time we used to have is done and gone. I know if either of us called the other and said, "Hey, I need help ASAP," we'd both still drop whatever we were doing to help the other, but what I really miss is the small goofy interactions we used to have. When my father was dying of cancer, my best friend called me to catch up and I told him about it and he nonchalantly said, "Your dad's dying because he isn't praying enough and that he would be healed if someone spoke in tongues over him." I was in disbelief that he got roped into the insane religious cult like his parents. I told him that was the grossest thing I could ever hear from him and hung up. My father died 2 weeks later. It's been 2 years and he hasn't called or texted once. Good riddance. Just made a post about this, but she uses me as a therapist, but when I try to vent to her, she gives me a few cliché words of support before turning the conversation back to her. It's gotten to the point where we don't talk unless she has a bad day and needs someone to talk to. She'll take days or even a week to respond to a funny meme but then immediately start dumping on me about things going on in her life. I'll invite her out to have fun and within a few hours, I'm being her life coach. Also, we just started to grow apart. She's turned into her parents and her parents are the typical snobby suburban people that are extremely judgmental. I was in a relationship with someone who my best friend assumed was a bad guy, but in reality he wasn't. She tried to get me to hook up with someone else while I was with this man and I refused. She ended up outing my relationship to my mother and spread rumors about us. When I confronted her about it, she played dumb. I felt so betrayed I just never spoke to her again, and now that guy and I are getting married and have a baby. He leaked personal files that were information about the people we take in. He was my coworker at a funeral home, and tried to blame it on me. Those files included autopsies, pictures of the actual body, legal information and so on. He would also not follow the request given by family members, religious practices such as thoroughly cleaning the body before burial, etc. Just a horrible person overall, and I truly believe that he leaked those things for personal fetishes because he had serious problems and we were suspecting him already. He was sentenced to prison for molesting 2 children. I went to visit him in prison because I did not believe it was possible it could be true. 1. I learned it was true. 2. He did not seem to understand what he did was wrong because it was true, and because he did not understand it was wrong, it is likely he will repeat the actions when released from prison. Cannot be friends or have any association. I have known this guy for over 35 years. I was long-term single and lonely. He was married, and suddenly all he could talk about was how much fun he was having by cheating on his wife. After a while of getting more and more depressed by being around him, I had thoughts like, how can I claim to respect women if I'm hanging out with him? How can I claim to respect relationships and marriage if I'm hanging out with him? I'd honestly rather have nobody to hang out with than someone who only talks about cheating on his wife. I ghosted him as much as is possible when you work at the same office. I've not seen any sign of him in 15 years and I'll be happy to never see him again. Jealousy. We were super close for 20 years. And as we got older, she compared absolutely everything we did. I wound up getting a great job and apartment and I watched it tear her apart. She even admitted to me that she had a hard time watching others do well. It was impossible for me to stick around. Constant microaggressions. I tried my hardest to stay friends because we had been through so much together. But I finally realized it wasn't fair to me to constantly be secretive about my achievements or be on the receiving end of utter disdain. One day I stopped taking her calls and never looked back. We were friends since primary school, and in primary she had a very typical childlike personality, as you'd expect a child to have, of course. The thing is, as we got older, she never lost this personality. She still behaved like a child in the sense that she was over the top positive about every little thing that happened. I don't think that's a bad thing. She saw the world through rose-colored glasses and added her own glitter to it. There are reasons for her being like that: dysfunctional family life, abusive father. She was the middle child who felt as though she had to keep the peace amongst everyone, so she developed this personality to compensate for the negativity of her home life. But for me, I didn't feel like she and I were compatible anymore as friends, as I often felt like I had to match her energy when I was around her. This slowly got more and more difficult, especially in my late teens as I went through a severe period of depression, so being her friend overall was exhausting. Eventually we just faded out of each other's lives. She's the one friend I feel guilty about drifting apart from because, unlike my other friends, she did absolutely nothing wrong. She's someone who's truly wholesome in spite of everything she grew up with. We're in our 20s now. Our mums are still close. Last I heard, she's met a wonderful guy whom she's living with. She doesn't want to get married, and I don't blame her, but he treats her right, which is all that matters, and I couldn't be happier for her. Thanks for listening to Reddit Rundown. Give a thumbs up and subscribe, and help me get to 1,000 subs. Leave a comment below on what kind of topics or stories you would like to hear. You can also check out other videos on my channel. Thanks and have an awesome day.